Hey folks, Dave the Not So Evil Viking 13 here, and this week, on the eve of the Battlefield 1 open beta, I am bringing you guys some thoughts from my time last month in the closed alpha that I was able to be a part of and put about 30 hours of gameplay into. I'd like to go over some of the things that stood out to me during the closed alpha and bring you guys my perspective as someone who basically started the majority of this channel on Battlefield 3, and also as someone who hasn't really been a part of what I would call the Battlefield community since probably early 2014. It's been a couple of years now, and I have definitely drifted away from Battlefield as a series. Let's talk about Battlefield 1's theme first, which is of course World War I. I was extremely excited in May when they announced this theme because it's a huge departure for the series, and also World War I is a bit underreported and not really talked about compared to World War II. Also for me personally, I've been on a bit of a World War I history binge already this year. While working on various Fallout builds earlier this year, I listened to the entirety of Dan Carlin's Blueprints for Armageddon podcast series, which is actually totally free by the way, and amazing for helping you get a detailed look at every point of the war. I'll toss a link in the description to where you can find that podcast, again for free. I highly recommend it, and it's what really got my interest started for World War I really early in the year. What Dan Carlin describes in his podcast, though, is not really what you're going to see here in Battlefield 1, at least not the broad strokes. What you are going to see, though, are kind of vignettes of the most intense stories from that war, kind of taken to their extremes. Ever since Battlefield 3, DICE has kind of stuck to a tried-and-true formula for Battlefield. Even though Battlefield 4 had a fair number of technical issues, and in my opinion quite a lot of design bloat, its core formula remained the same. And if you're expecting something like Verdun or Arma World War I out of Battlefield 1, well, you're definitely going to be disappointed going into the open beta. But on the other hand, don't be too hasty to write Battlefield 1 off. I love both Arma, of course, as well as Verdun actually, and more realistic games like Red Orchestra 2. At the same time, Battlefield has never tried to be a game like that, and so it's not super surprising that we're seeing a more Hollywood version of World War I here in Battlefield 1. I saw someone on Reddit describe it as the Indiana Jones version of World War I, where it's about bombastic adventure, and I think that's a really great way of describing it. It's not that it's a bad depiction of World War I. Far from it, actually, I think. I think it's really compelling, very exciting, and very intense. More intense than most developers would be able to make World War I. It's just not super realistic. And even as a person who really enjoys realistic games, I'm okay with this because I think the Battlefield 1 formula actually works. It's some of the best gameplay elements of Battlefield 3 and 4, without all the bloat, just applied to a new historical setting. Yes, DICE is bending the rules quite a bit with the amount of automatic weapons and prototype weapons and things like the armored machine gunners, and turning things like the armored trains into the leviathans of certain game modes. Generally speaking though, everything that you see in Battlefield 1 is a real weapon or a real vehicle or a real, armored train, even if it wasn't in great circulation during the war. If you guys are long-term Battlefield players, you're going to feel right at home in Battlefield 1. Even though DICE is playing it pretty safe with their gameplay formula, it is one that works well, even here in World War I. If you're a history buff like me, and also a Battlefield fan, I'm really hoping that in single player, we're going to see some really nice nods to the trench warfare and the slower parts of the war, while keeping that Battlefield multi-vehicle, large-scale infantry combat, everyone working together action that we know and love from the multiplayer. I think single player is going to be a great chance for DICE to kind of back things down a bit from the chaos of Battlefield 1's multiplayer and give us a maybe more serious look at World War I while still giving it that Indiana Jones flair. Going into the open beta, you guys can expect that classic Battlefield formula, and if that's never been your thing, now might be the time to try it out, because I really do think that the setting of World War I does make it fresh again, especially after a couple of Modern Warfare Battlefield games in a row. At the end of the day, the open beta is going to be available for everyone on all platforms, so you've only got 6 gigs and a bit of your time to lose if you want to try it out for yourself and see if maybe things have changed if Battlefield has not been your thing in the past. Just a word of caution though, don't expect anything revolutionary as far as gameplay goes, but expect it to be DICE at pretty much the top of their game, coming off of the launches of Battlefield Hardline and Battlefront, where the balancing should be a lot tighter, the game should be a lot less bloated, and network-wise, the game should be very solid on launch, and hopefully during the open beta as well. Going into the closed alpha last month, one of the first things that really struck me about the gameplay in Battlefield 1 is that destruction appears to be back in a much more dynamic and exciting way compared to both Battlefield 3 and 4. 4 of course had Levolution, which was neat but got old quickly. 3 had some destruction, but it was pretty hit or miss. It was sometimes tough to figure out when you were actually going to see some of that destruction. Battlefield 1 reminds me a lot more of Bad Company 2. Basically, everything that you can see can be destroyed. It was very rare that I attacked an object or rammed an object with a tank and went, oh wait, that didn't fall apart or collapse as I thought it would. Now, not everything is destructible, of course, but the range of destructible objects is far higher than 3 or 4 from what I saw in the closed alpha. At the same time, the destruction in Battlefield 1 does not have the limitations that Bad Company 2 had, where you essentially had 1 or 2 copy and paste houses that you saw on every single Bad Company 2 map. Bad Company 2 had lots of destruction, sure, but there was no variety in those destructible buildings. Battlefield 3 and 4 had more objects that could be destroyed, but less dynamic and less interesting destruction. I think Battlefield 1 is finally hitting that sweet spot between a nice variety in the destructible buildings and actually making the destruction be a big part of the game once again. Also, it's weird to be excited about this maybe, but I am excited that a lot of the buildings actually have some interiors now. You're going to have some war-torn bedrooms with, notes being written at the desk, and some pianos covered in cloth and stuff like that. It's nice to see just a bit of decoration, finally, for Battlefield's interiors. Next up, I want to talk briefly just about the graphics, and there really isn't a whole lot to say about the graphics just right off the bat, just because DICE is, as usual, at the top of their game, and the game looks fantastic. It is easily going to be one of the best looking shooters on the market, if not the best looking shooter. But I wanted to talk about a feature that we've been wanting since Battlefield 3. That feature is, of course, dynamic weather. The community has been wanting dynamic weather since Battlefield 3 was first announced, and we're finally getting it here in Battlefield 1. Okay, first of all, a nitpick right here. The name is confusing. I get World War I, Battlefield 1. Really, you couldn't just go with Battlefield 1917. I mean, stick with tradition. The 1 is annoying. Anyway, the weather. The weather is awesome. It really does change the gameplay. In foggy weather, airplanes are next to worthless for ground targets. You've got to have somebody spotting constantly and be on the ball to hit any ground targets. So that makes the infantry a lot more active and prone to daring assaults across open terrain during the fog. Even outside of just the gameplay effects though, the ability for maps to change weather dynamically, and it has been confirmed that all of the release maps are going to have weather effects, that makes all of the maps feel so much fresher when you have the random chance to have the map look completely different, because these aren't just subtle weather effects. These really change the visual style, and again, like I said, the gameplay of the maps. It's a huge addition to the game, and probably one of my favorite new features overall. When it comes to Battlefield as a whole, I am definitely a vehicle guy. So I have a few thoughts about the different vehicles and the infantry classes that go along with them. Similar to previous Battlefield titles, there are specific classes designed for vehicles, and in this case, in Battlefield 1, when you select a vehicle, you actually spawn as the class designed for that vehicle. So if you spawn in a light tank, you spawn in as, I believe it's a mechanic, and if you spawn in an airplane, you spawn as a pilot. It makes sense. This is really helpful because it ensures that you have the correct loadout for your vehicle as you hop into it. No more desperately swapping to your favorite saved engineer loadout because you want that tank or that, anti-aircraft gun and you want to be able to keep it repaired. DICE has also added the ability for vehicle drivers to self-repair their vehicles. And while I was actually not a fan of this change because I think it's unbalanced, even as a vehicle enthusiast in Battlefield, I at least kind of get why they did it. If you had to get out and repair your vehicle, and you were the only class with that ability, the amount of times that your teammate would steal that vehicle and make off with it would be ridiculous. I mean, if you were a plane that had to land for repairs, first of all, that would slow things down quite a bit, but as soon as you landed, everyone would be trying to steal your plane. So I get why self-repair is an option. It's because if you hop out, classes who don't have the ability to actually take care of that vehicle are going to take it. Now, here's what I think coming out of the alpha. I think this ability is just too powerful right now, and I'm not quite sure how DICE is going to balance it or how things might have changed from the alpha to the beta, but as, again, a vehicle-focused player in previous Battlefield titles, I found it quite easy to grab a light tank and kind of duck off in the corner of the map and play things really slowly. Keep the heat on the enemy, but keep in the back of the map, basically, and whenever I start to get surrounded, just pull back and self-repair. And it was pretty rare that I got hit hard enough and fast enough from multiple enemies that I couldn't sneak off and stay alive. On the other hand, in previous Battlefield titles, a good vehicle driver would be able to do this even if they're able to, or required to, hop out and repair their vehicle and they don't have the ability to self-repair. So maybe it's really not that big of a deal and I was just using it really well. I can't say definitively. It's just one thing that I noticed as I was playing as vehicles in the Battlefield 1 alpha. One final note on the vehicles, I wasn't a big fan of the airplanes just yet. I loved watching them dogfight and do bombing runs, but in Battlefield 3 and 4, even in 4, which was kind of broken on launch and I didn't play for very long, I loved the jets, and I put hundreds of hours into the jets alone. Something just felt off with the biplanes in the Battlefield 1 alpha, but I want to love them, and I really think it's just a matter of I need to spend some more time with them. I was attempting to play with the planes with the mouse and keyboard, which is what I used for all of the jets in Battlefield 3 and 4 because I could set my keyboard keys to be 100% hard turn, and I could get mostly perfect loops by tapping keyboard keys. That didn't seem to work as well here with the biplanes. I couldn't quite tell if I was stalling and what was going on. Honestly, the biplanes just felt kind of floaty to control, but that might just be me, so I'm going to spend some more time with them during the open beta. Outside of those couple of notes, overall I enjoyed all of my time with the vehicles in Battlefield 1. I want to get more of the casual shenanigans gaming crew in so we can actually give the land ship a really good try. It was fun with randoms, but I feel like it's really going to shine when you're playing with people that are on Teamspeak or communicating better. To wrap up my closed alpha impressions, and to get you guys all set, knowing what to expect going into the open beta, I want to talk just briefly about Infantry. I finally spent a solid chunk of time with the Infantry towards the end of the closed alpha, finally drug myself out of the light tank to give them a try, and what I found is that DICE has included a lot of the classic World War I weapons, but unfortunately, they're just in the Scout class. I'm referring, of course, to the bolt actions like the Lee Enfield. This worries me, because I understand they want to have the experimental automatic weapons to make the gameplay a bit faster, but I had the most fun on foot with the bolt actions. And I feel like if they threw a couple of those iron sight only bolt actions as options for the other classes, again, I'm not advocating for like a all-class weapon because I know that DICE is trying to kind of step back from those. But if they could find a unique bolt action rifle for that faction that would show up for the other classes besides the Scout, I think that would make a lot of people really happy. And I think that would slow the game down for people that want it slowed down. It doesn't have to be a one-hit kill. Obviously, like these Scout weapons, it can be a headshot one-hit kill only. But I think that wouldn't have too many negatives to it, and a lot of people would be super happy with that option. And if you don't want the bolt actions, if you want to stick to the automatics, just stick to the automatics. It could just be an option for those who want them. On the flip side though, props to DICE for cutting down on the amount of attachments and overall weapons and gadgets and just bloat that Battlefield 4 had. Infantry wise, I really don't have a whole lot to talk about. If you guys have played a recent Battlefield game, you kind of know what to expect. Don't expect a lot of trench warfare, but I'm excited to see how rush mode works as far as having to maintain a bit more cover and advance in groups and advance with more strategy compared to conquest mode, which is of course more of an open map free-for-all. We might actually see more World War I like gameplay in rush mode, and that's one thing I am very excited to try out. So guys, there you have it, my final thoughts on the Battlefield 1 closed alpha here on the eve of the opening up of the open beta, where you guys will get to try it as well. I hope that my impressions made some sense and gave you guys an idea of what to expect. What you can also expect is to see me out there quite a bit during the open alpha. I really did enjoy my time with Battlefield 1. I think it was a refreshing change of pace, like I said earlier, from the previous Battlefield titles. I think DICE is really getting things polished as far as their network backend, their engine, their launches, and their game design compared to the rougher launches that we've had in the past. And with how solid and pretty stable the launches were for both Battlefront and Battlefield Hardline, I've got pretty good hopes that this Battlefield title should have a solid and stable launch. And here's hoping that they pull it off, because again, for me, this has been a really refreshing change of pace for the Battlefield series, and I'm looking forward to spending some more time with it during the open beta. If you guys would like to see some more Battlefield 1 content coming up, along with my usual Fallout 4, and Arma, and Total War, and Witcher content, be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you guys on the next video.
We have lost objective Charlie.